What's going on, guys? I'm here with Matt Wyatt, Sportscaster of the Year from Mississippi, first time winning. Matt wears many hats. He's a analyst, broadcaster, filmmaker, and entrepreneur. So he does it all, and it's a pleasure to have him here. But yeah, so I'm just going to get into some questions here, Matt. First off, you've done a lot in your career, and you like I said, you wear many hats. You were a player, and now you're very successful in the sportscasting space. But what was your career path like getting there? Did you know what you wanted to do? Because obviously you were a player. Did you know you wanted to stay in sports? Did you? Where'd you start, and how'd you get where you are today?
Yeah, I think, to answer it specifically would take a really long time
Yeah.
because mine was not one of these clear paths where, you kind of identify what you want to do, you major in that, boom, you hit it right out of college. Mine was a little all over the place. I'll give you the shortest answer I can. Yeah. After graduating from college with a degree in sports communication, which, as broad as that is,
Right.
most of my classes in that major at Mississippi State were writing based, geared towards writing for print, writing for TV, writing for radio. So that was a lot of the curriculum. There wasn't a lot of stuff that was broadcast or even journalism for that matter. It wasn't a broadcast or journalism degree.
Right.
So I had in my head when I was getting ready to graduate that I wanted to write and do photography freelance. And I wanted to do it for outdoor stuff, hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. And, but right after graduation, I had a chance an offer basically to go to Germany and play football in Germany. This was May of 2000. And so I took the offer. I went, lived in Germany, in Hamburg, Germany for a year, played ball. The whole time I'm there, I'm thinking, now, how am I going to make a living when this is over, And after a year of that, came back and got a job at a local television station in North Mississippi. It was an NBC affiliate. And the job was like sales, covering high school football on Friday nights, doing a fishing show on Wednesdays. It was like a little bit of everything.
So you did a little bit of everything, right?
Which was phenomenal
Right.
experience, because you think about it, not just taking somebody and let's plug and play them on the air. No, we're going to actually teach him how to sell. Okay. So he's talking to clients and you're not just doing sports, you're talking, you're running a camera or you're editing or you're doing a fishing thing or a hunting segment, on the news. So it was just such great training. Didn't make any money at all. Like it was a low, because I'm always doing this other stuff. I really wasn't selling a whole lot. I was just learning it. And what happened is that sort of ushered me into then becoming an anchor full-time on the air, sports anchor. Did that for about 5 years up until about 05, 06. And I joke about it. I say that I was in television and then my hair fell out and I started doing radio. But it kind of coincided about that time. The sports stuff on TV gave me a chance to do some radio work. And then in 2009, Mississippi State hired me as a pregame and postgame radio host. Right about that time, I jumped out and got my first full-time gig as a radio host for a talk show here in the state of Mississippi. That was in the afternoons then. And so all of that it was like, the early television work doing sports just ushered me right over back into football and sports talk. And so I guess that started about 2009. And then in 2010, Mississippi State, the school I played for, moved me into the color analyst chair for the broadcast. I've been doing that for 10 years now and hosting a radio show for a living. So that was sort of the path. I wanted to write. I wanted to do outdoor stuff, but instead I talk and I do football. And that's just kind of how it worked out.
And you said, because I'm also a communications major, and you said in the beginning, like sports communication, and it kind of came full circle because it's like, it's such a broad major. And then what'd you end up doing? Everything. Right. And that's like, kind of like what you envision, especially, as someone like myself who's graduating or, when I explain to people why I chose it, it's like, well, I could really do anything I want. And I think there's a great element to that. Like you said, like you did a little bit of everything. And in these interviews, like when I talk to other winners of the award, they talk about like one of the most important things when you're young and getting into the industry is like doing a little bit of everything, like knowing how to sell yourself, knowing how to work a camera, knowing how to be in front of the camera, talk, and yeah, all those skills are very important. But you also mentioned like you worked a lot with your alma mater where you played. How was that experience like? Like, you know better than anyone what it feels like to wear the uniform and play on the field for that team. And how is that transition going from playing and then also covering the team?
It's been great. And as you said, there's just this familiarity with sort of the, pardon the pun, but with the playing field you're on, so for me, even at this age, we go to the game or we're at the stadium on game day and we're getting ready to talk about it on radio. There's just this comfort and familiarity with it because I've been there, and instead of putting on a uniform and let's go play the game and go through warmups, I'm just putting on the headset and now let's just talk about the game throughout. It's sort of, for somebody like me who, I could probably have coached if I had wanted to get into that. I'm sort of coaching vicariously, through the broadcast and the headset. Right, and that's kind of how it feels for me. It would be very, very different if I were asked to do play-by-play of football, even though I played the game and stuff, because that seems like more of a job. It's more regimented. There's more of a, it's just more work to make sure the listener gets the info. For me as the analyst, I'm basically on the radio every game day doing the same thing I would be doing if I were sitting in front of my television at home. And that is going, hey, that's a holding. They missed a hold right here on 76, or that was a really good throw and it's harder than it looks. Let me tell you why. So I enjoy it. It's great. Yeah. It honestly, that role, it doesn't feel like work. It's just kind of a privilege to be there and to actually get paid to do it.
Right. And I wanted to ask that because it's like, like I said, better than anyone, the ins and outs of, playing, and not just playing the game, but at a high level, but playing for that specific team and what it means. And I'm sure, honestly, it means a lot for the players having someone who was, in their same shoes, 20 years ago, covering them as well. So right now, I mean, I know you do a lot of things, but under the umbrella of that, what is like your favorite part of what you do, like being in the industry, your favorite part of the job? What you get the most, I would say, like satisfaction from?
It's a great question. I would say I would probably point to two things. Number one is it really is the analyst or the analysis part of the job. Because as we've talked about, it's like for me personally, I'm so lucky because it's not just one thing. Like I do color commentary for our broadcasts on game day for the school I played for. And then Monday through Friday in this state, I'm on the radio on a talk show, kind of continuing that analysis of what happened or what's going to happen. And that's where I'm comfortable. For instance, on my show, I don't do a lot of pot stirring. We're not into the rumor stuff. And we take calls, but it's not trying to get two callers to argue with each other. We don't do that. My lane is let's talk about the games. And even during other sports, basketball and baseball, let's talk about the games. Let's get into the analytics a little bit. Let's do a little of the X's and O's and try to understand what happened from the only unique perspective that I have, which is having played. So that's just, I'm really lucky to be able to do that, not just on Saturdays, but Monday through Friday. So I would say my favorite part is being able to step up here on my show or in the booth on Saturdays and people who are listening say to them, okay, people are going to say that was a bad call by the coach or bad play call, but here's why I think it was a good call. They just didn't execute it. Now it sounds like coach speak, but let me explain to you why. And sometimes it might be video and showing that on video. So I like kind of being in that niche, between the game and the fan and try to connect that a little better. And then the next thing I think for me that I enjoy most is that in 2020, 21, there's video involved in everything we're doing. That really wasn't the case in radio and content, 10, 15 years ago. But just like, you and I, we're talking and this is a video thing. 10, 20 years ago, it would have been just a phone call and we'd have posted that or whatever. So having started in television, that was sort of my initial background, learning to edit, trying to tell stories or tell the story with video. And now in everything we do in media, video is involved. And I really enjoy that too.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, you bring that unique perspective, which is important. But um, a point you made that stood out to me was like about your show and how it's not like, you know, like poking and prodding and like controversy and people arguing, which
Yeah,
um, like may seem like normal, but nowadays with media and social media, it's really not. And a lot of media and sports is not necessarily like bad, but it is like, argumentative and like debate style. And sometimes like the pure analysis and breakdown of the game and insight gets lost in all of that.
sure.
And I think that's amazing. Um,
Well, I appreciate it. And I think that we live in a time like you and I are talking here. Any analyst at any school or of an NFL team or of an NBA team, if they really wanted to put in the time and the work, can take their phone or their computer, like we're talking here, and connect with that fan base and really explain those things. And what I have found is the fan base is hungry for the in-depth analysis. Give me more of that, with the understanding that, look, we can't go 5 minutes in depth on a play during the actual call of a game. We understand that. But if I take 5 minutes on that radio show on Monday, or if we post a YouTube video that is connected to our show, and maybe we take 10 minutes and break down 2 or 3 important plays, people are hungry for that stuff. And I think you're right that because of the fast-paced nature of live television and live radio and big shows and stuff, there are time constraints. There's only so much they can get into. But what I find, there's a huge open market right now. Just like I said, that connecting the game and the fan base, and in between is an explanation of what happened, why it happened, and why it happened, when it happened. There's actually a big gap right there out there in analysis. And I think at least in my little world here, am trying to kind of get into that niche.
right. And that is awesome too. And like you said, when it comes to like breaking down, like having like coaches or players or representatives of the team being able to speak on something, and I think it's great in like the market you're in, because I feel like that's more available and accessible, and it happens more, and it happens at the at professional levels, of course, as well. But fans really do appreciate that. Like when there's a play on Sunday for like your favorite football team, or I'm a Giants fan, so let's say the Giants are playing, and there's a certain play call where I'm just like, what was the thought process there? And you just
Right.
you just kind of want to hear what the coach has to say, because maybe it's respectable and you can move on from that. But a lot of times, like, you just don't get that access because and it's not the athletes or the coach's fault, because a lot of times they are put in awkward positions when they're speaking or answering questions, so they're protecting themselves. So it's not completely like the athlete's fault or the coach's fault either. But I wish there was just more of that, because that transparency does mean a lot to fans. They want to feel like they understand the game and what's going on, and they can represent their team in that way. But
No question.
yeah, that is great. That's why I enjoyed when you said that so much, because that is something I really believe in. So you've had like a long career doing many things, but what would you say personally has been like the highlight of your career in sports media? Like what was the most like self-fulfilling, or the moment where you felt that most high being where you are now?
Yeah. Oh boy. That's a little bit of a tough question, because I probably should be a little more self-aware and realize that I'm getting old or older, but it still feels like I'm just getting started. That's kind of how it feels anyway. And I guess that's true. Like as far as being an analyst on radio, that this is my 10th year, or was my 10th year. As far as hosting a radio show, talk show full time, I think it was my 11th year. So, in terms of that part of my career, I'm sort of just getting started. But in terms of fulfilling, I would say that I would probably point to, from a pure enjoyment standpoint, being on the broadcast crew for our school, Mississippi State, when our football team went to number one in the country for, I think it was 5 straight weeks in 2014. Dak Prescott was our quarterback. We had a bunch of other great players, NFL type on, where you've got like game day on campus and a couple of top 5 matchups in a row, and the team won them. And so the first ever college football playoff rankings come out, and we're number one in those first rankings. Stayed there didn't finish there, which would be most important, but was there for a little while, which is the first time in school history.
Right.
And that was pretty cool, because that sort of coincided with the expansion of our football stadium. That 2014 season was the first year they kind of unveiled the new stadium. So it all really was special to go through it, to live it. And while it was absolutely totally special for every fan that's ever rooted for our school, to be a part of it in the booth, calling the games, traveling with the team, home and away. When they show highlights, they're using some of your radio call. They put this. That was really neat, And I think up until that point, maybe it hadn't quite dawned on me how lucky, somebody like me, how lucky you are to be in that position. How many people would love to be in that position. And yes, you've done some things to earn it, but you still feel like you don't quite deserve to be there. How cool it. I think that's when it first dawned on me, and that was kind of a high point.
Right. And that is, because I didn't really know that. I only started watching college sports like fairly recently, but because like now, if you're a fan of college sports or college football as of the last 5-6 years, all you know is like the Alabamas and the LSUs, but that being like ranked up there and high up, like that could mean a lot for that area, and of course because you've taken that same team to high heights, and that must have been incredible just to be a process and be like there every step of the way, like you said.
Yeah, it was really unbelievable. And to see the effect that it had on, the effect that the success of one team had on the town, local business, the effect it had on my radio show, our statewide audience, things like that. It was pretty incredible.
Right. And just the impact on the community in general, like that's such a cool thing. And just it feels like, I'm sure it feels like everyone's involved too. Like everyone is, you probably saw like so many fans, so much gear, everything. It was probably a really cool time. Now for people my age, a little younger, a little older, any age really, but people that are just breaking in or want to get into the sports media industry, what are some, a piece of advice or some tips you can give those people when getting into the sports media industry?
Oh, absolutely. Could probably make a top 10 list of things that, that people ought to try to check mark. So I'll try to keep it concise. There's a lot of advice that I would give. Number one would be to whatever content you're involved with, you are going to be better served long-term by being genuine, being yourself, true to kind of who you are and what your true feelings and thoughts are on whatever subject it is. I would just say, don't allow yourself to get into a mode where the things that you're producing, the content you're producing, the things you're saying, whether it's radio or whether you're writing it, whatever, is geared towards what's going to be popular. Well, here's what I mean by that. There are a lot of successful people in media all over the place and all types of media who, they have lots of followers on social media. They have an audience, but it's pretty easy to tell that a lot of the takes and a lot of the things that they're saying are pretty contrived. It's really geared towards just what can I do to get the most attention? And, you can do that and you can make a living for a little while with that. But what I think is 9 out of 10 people who take that approach are going to regret it down the road. And it's probably going to hurt their career in the long run. 9 out of 10 people. Right, I just think you're better off to take the approach of in media, be true to yourself and be as genuine as you can. Be uncomfortably genuine is the best way to go, because it kind of sounds like we're doing self-help, but really the uniqueness of an individual is what's going to take that individual the farthest anyway. And so tapping into that uniqueness, whatever it is, it takes practice, it takes time to get comfortable with it. That would be the number one piece of advice. Be true to yourself, be genuine. And then number two, I would say, is understand that just like anything else, the people that go the farthest and that ultimately get the most enjoyment out of it are the people that put the most into it, that work the hardest, that pump out the most content, that are the most consistent, even when their everyday life around them is trying to take over and wedge out what you're trying to get done. That hard-nosed, will not be denied approach is really what it takes. And, I haven't always, when I give that advice, it's not like I've always nailed that perfectly, but I certainly have understood it. And the farther I go, the better I get at the consistency and just frankly working hard.
Yeah. And I think your first point and your second point kind of work in tandem, right? If you're being yourself and, you're doing you're doing what like you're comfortable with all the time and you're being yourself, I feel like that's way more sustainable, and you'll be willing to, work harder and put out more content. You'll be more comfortable in the space you're in. Because I did the same thing with Van Tate, who's a 12-time winner from New Mexico, and he said the same thing. He was like, you're gonna get the farthest and be the happiest, because it's not all like you could be as successful as anyone, like the biggest names in the industry, like whoever, Stephen A. Smith, but like if you're being yourself, you'll find that like the most satisfaction. If the success comes, and it comes, but you're going to do a good job at what you're doing because you're being yourself. And as cliche as it sounds, and you, like you said, it sounds like self, like but it's like there's only one you, right? So as cliche as it sounds, like you could be the best you. You'll never be the best anyone else. You could be the second best someone else, but you could always be the best you. And I think that's important to remember, especially as someone like myself who's young and still like learning and getting in to the industry. It's like that's important to remember, because I feel like the structure that we're in, and like the way the climate could be in the sports media industry a lot of time is like just saying whatever is like hot or will get the most reactions. But that is a very good point, and it is definitely something to keep in mind. I definitely will, for sure.
Sure.
But those are all the questions I have for you, Matt. If you want to say thank anyone or say anything else before we head off, you could go ahead and do that now.
Well, and I do want to thank you for including me. It's really neat to talk to folks and new people, but I also want to say thanks to the association, the National Sports Media Association, because it's just a huge honor for someone like me to be recognized, to get to talk to you guys, to kind of see your name on the website, to get a chance to be a part of all that. It's really, really neat. And yeah, just thank you for including me. And, fingers crossed, maybe we can do it again one of these days.
Yes, definitely. And hopefully, possibly if you're going to be down at awards weekend, if there is awards weekend and maybe I'm down there, we can meet for sure and chat in person. But thank you again, Matt, and congratulations. It was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah.